Hey, Secret.
It's me, Aaron.
Oh, hey, Brandon. How you doing?
I'm good.
You hear me? I can
I,
barely hear you.
I can't hear you. I just can't see you.
Okay, yeah. For some reason, when it started, I think it actually started the webinar and recorded, so it didn't take us directly to the practice session. But I can share my screen. How do you see this screen, Brandon?
It looks fine.
Okay, cool. Yes. Am I number one? Let me see.
I think we're both number one. Oh, I'm number two. You're number one.
Okay. Huh. Hey, just so you know, I had a interesting conversation with Trieste about Solar for All today. Well, I'll fill you in when we check in.
Okay. So I'm gonna have to wait a weekend.
Well, we can check it earlier, Tuesday. If you want to chat tomorrow, we can. I nailed down the rafting trip too.
Oh, I was gonna ask you about that because
Yeah.
I never got success calling them in the morning either. So I was
Yeah,
always calling them in the afternoon.
yeah, they called me back. All right, I'm gonna just grab a glass of water. I'll be right back.
All right.
Hey, Jenna, how you doing? Jenna, are you there? Hey, Sigrid, how do you pause the recording? For some reason, when I opened this in Zoom, it automatically started recording.
It should be on the top left. There should be a pause button over there.
Yeah, you have to do it, Aaron, because you're the host right now.
Yeah, we don't have the option, which is why we can't do it.
Let's see. Show webinar. Would it be under more? Here we go. Pause recording.
That's the most important part. Yeah, we want to make sure this is recorded for any questions after the session. So perfect.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. Well, I'd like to welcome you all to our Arlington Solar Switch 101. My name is Aaron Such. On behalf of our Sun team, Suprit Mishra, as well as Brandon Prello, it is a pleasure to have you all here. We are also going to give the floor over shortly to our partners and collaborators in Arlington County, Jenna Peabody and Courtney Chin, to discuss their program as part of the Arlington County Sustainability Initiative. This webinar is going to talk about Arlington Solar Switch. It's going to go into how the program works, talk about technology, and then helping to understand some of the finances of solar. So we aim to get you out of here in about an hour. And again, appreciate you all joining us a little bit after your lunch hour on this Thursday. I'm going to go on to this slide. We are all pretty fluent and familiar with Zoom, but just as a housekeeping tip, we're going to skip the first one. We are going to have you submit your questions in the chat. This is an interactive presentation. So it is part of us, hearing your questions. Please submit them in the chat. And then just know that this webinar is being recorded. People that RSVP'd but were not available for the webinar are going to be getting a recording, as well as those that attended. So I'm going to turn it over to Jenna to speak a little bit about Arlington Initiative to Rethink Energy. Jenna?
Great, thank you. So I'm joined by Courtney Chin, and we are on the AIR team. And as Aaron said, thank you for the introduction. We will be representing Arlington County government in this partnership for the solar co-op. You could go to the next slide, and I'll turn it to Courtney.
Thanks, Jenna. Just to give a little bit of a background about AIR, the Arlington Initiative to Rethink Energy. We are part of the Division of Office of Sustainability and Environment within Arlington County. through AIR, Arlington is on its way to achieving our 2050 goal to be carbon neutral through our different milestones in our community energy plan. And our mission is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions within the government operations, encourage and recognize businesses that join in reducing their emissions, inform residents, such as activities through like the Solar Co-op info session, engage other localities and regional organizations in a broader effort to reduce emissions, and execute our community energy plan, our CEP. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide. So just a little bit of a history of the Solar Co-op in Arlington. Solar United Neighbors has been operating in Arlington since 2014, so about a decade in Arlington County. And it's gone through a lot of evolutions, so I'm sure Sun will kind of hint at. But over the past 2 years alone, over 120 Arlington residents have installed rooftop solar through the Capital Area Solar Switch. So it's been a really great program to have for Arlington residents. It's great to go out there in the community and let everyone know about the co-op. And I hope you all get something out of this. If you haven't heard about it before, maybe this is a reminder that the co-op exists and has been here for quite a long time. This is a little archival photo of Aaron out in the community giving another Solar 101. So we can go to the next slide. Yep, and then some incentives to be aware of in Arlington. There is a federal tax credit available for solar, up to 30% for the cost of new qualified rooftop solar. That includes the installation cost. That is part of the Inflation Reduction Act. So this is a federal tax credit. It's available now. All you have to do is contact your tax advisor if you want to look into that. But highly recommend everyone do a little bit more research on that. We also have a webpage on the AIR website that goes into the Inflation Reduction Act tax credits and rebates if you're interested in learning more about that. We also have an update on the county solar tax exemption. Very recently, as of about this week, we will have updates to the real estate assessment tax exemption for rooftop solar. So we don't have information to quite share at this time, but it will be very soon in the next couple of days. There will be an update to the real estate assessments website. And just wanted to flag that for anyone who's looking into getting rooftop solar to look into this tax exemption in the county. So we'll be providing updates on that on our solar rooftop website when that information is available. Next slide, please. And for our future AIR initiatives, I will hand it over to Jenna.
Thank you. So very exciting. We have a few upcoming events. So one is 2 Sundays from now, the annual Green Community Celebration and Tour. So the celebration will begin from 11 a.m. to 12:30 at Central Library. We absolutely encourage you to come and celebrate with us on green initiatives. And then after the celebration, you can begin your own personalized tour. You can go to a few different sites around the county, and that will range from about noon to 2, and then about 2 to 4:30. So definitely you can learn more, and I'll drop that link in the chat right now. Also dropped in the chat is the Virginia Home Energy Rebates Questionnaire, in which Virginia Energy is requesting written feedback from Virginians about the Homes and Here program design. That is due tomorrow. However, they are accepting responses after tomorrow. So definitely take your time to provide your answers. There's about 30 questions, and you do not have to answer all of them, but we encourage you to answer the ones that pertain to you. And then lastly, subscribe to our AIR newsletter. We provide monthly updates about our program, other IRA incentives, energy saving tips, events like this. So you'll definitely be in the know when these events come around. And, like Courtney said, as soon as we hear about the solar tax exemption forms, we will definitely be able to share that with you via the newsletter. And I will pause there. Thank you so much. I'll turn it over to Aaron.
Great. Thank you, Jenna and Courtney. Yeah, I just wanted to elevate how valuable of a partner that Arlington County has been since 2014 as this Solar Switch is an evolution in the co-op process. Arlington County has been really valuable, help us. In fact, we piloted the first EV charger co-op, which we as an organization adopted throughout all of our states. And a lot of the folks in Arlington have been really valuable advocates and solar ambassadors. And that's really because of the leadership of Arlington County, which we as an organization really appreciate. So thank you again. Also, a good nonprofit, Eco Action Arlington, has been with us as well as part of the collaborators for this group. So shout out to them. I'm going to go ahead and tell you a little bit about Solar United Neighbors, who we are as an organization, then get into what does the Solar Switch program looks like, and after each section, stop and pause for questions. So Solar United Neighbors is a nonprofit, vendor-neutral 501c3 organization that got started kind of by accident right across the river in Washington, D.C. My boss, along with her son, Walter, and his friend Diego, saw the movie Inconvenient Truth in 2007, and were so motivated by that movie to take action, they thought that the easiest or most doable thing would be to go solar on their row house in Mount Pleasant. And at that time, the cost of going solar was more than 5 times the cost of what it is now. And more importantly, it was really hard for them to understand the process. They got proposals with information that they found really confusing. So Anya thought she was being a smart mother and saying, well, if it's so challenging, why don't we take the whole neighborhood solar? She thought that would be a non-starter. Well, she underestimated her son's ability for community organizing. He turned it into a project in which they put flyers on all the neighborhoods' doorsteps, got about 100 people interested as part of this co-op, kind of a loose-knit group of neighbors to work together. And after a couple of years, took nearly 50 homes solar as part of the Mount Pleasant Solar Co-op. So Solar United Neighbors started literally as people in the district reached out for her to repeat that success story as well as nationally. So it started with her really just working out of her house with a few volunteers. In fact, when I joined the organization, our office was still her house in Mount Pleasant. We were about 4 people and 2 interns, and we have grown quite a bit since then. But we're really an organization that represents solar owners or prospective solar owners. We're motivated by the environment, but really not an environmental nonprofit per se. And fast forward to 2024, we have members in all 50 states. We're getting a mailing list or a group or network, close to about 1 million people, have run over 400 plus bulk purchases, over 60 staff. It's now actually grown to nearly 70 staff across 5 time zones. So we've really grown as an organization. And to go in a little bit more about our impact, we've helped more than 9,000 plus families go solar across the 11 states, as well as DC and Puerto Rico, where we work. And we've deployed more than 70 megawatts worth of solar capacity, mostly on rooftops. And that is an industrial scale of solar, again, on individual rooftops. But something we also feel really proudly about is that we mobilize people to be solar advocates, solar ambassadors, to help pass fair policy that in turn gets an equitable energy system that directs control and benefits back to local communities. And solar on rooftops is really well positioned to do that. Here in Virginia, we're closing in on about 1,300 installations as we started in the state in 2014, 11 megawatts worth of installed capacity. And I'd say that is really because of our theory of change. Again, I mentioned that we are not an environmental nonprofit per se. We are a nonprofit that represents solar owners and prospective solar owners. And the way that we work is we help people go solar, and that means support with new and existing systems and installer and technology neutral support. So this solar switch or bulk purchase or solar co-op is one way we do it. We also have a help desk. So it is a free service that we deploy nationwide for people that want to get resources if they're having challenges with an existing system or work or in an area where there isn't an existing bulk purchase or solar co-op or solar switch opportunity. And then we help people join together. What we found is that people that go solar are great ambassadors and they want to connect with other solar owners. So we have a listserv in each of our states. In Virginia, we've got about a 1,200 member listserv. So it's an online discussion forum We do social events, happy hours. In fact, we've got an in-person event coming up on the 30th of May, this next week in person. And again, provide a lot of resources like selling your solar home, battery storage, as well as, understanding the laws for HOAs. So we really figure ourselves as a focal point. And more importantly, we fight for energy rights. We will fiercely protect things like net metering. We've been engaged in some of those challenges here in Virginia and in other states. In 2020, we passed a piece of legislation that made it harder for HOAs to restrict solar in their communities. And again, we represent solar owners in a nonpartisan way. One of the beauties about solar is that it brings everybody together. 9 out of 10 Americans, regardless of political affiliation, support solar. It's just for different reasons. So we are in that position to fight for those solar rights. So that's a little bit about us. I'm going to tell you about Solar Switch and then pause for any questions and then maybe turn it over to Sukrit if there is anything that I missed. Sukrit is our resident Solar Switch expert. So Solar Switch represents an evolution from our co-op model that has essentially, we need to scale up. So what a Solar Switch program is a group buying program for solar, photovoltaic, and battery storage for homeowners and small businesses in a concentric geographic area. The advantages is that it saves consumers time and money with a vetted installer that delivers a high quality product at a great price. It is provided in partnership with a firm that we're working with, iChooser, nonprofit, which is us, Solar United Neighbors, and we partner with local governments, Arlington, Fairfax, and Northern Virginia, and then Maryland and DC. So it's a program that we want to show kind of regional impact, but really make it easier for homeowners to go solar with the support and good pricing that the program offers. It is a voluntary buying group, so it is no obligation. You sign up for free, and it's designed to give you the best value on an installation. And I'm going to tell you kind of how that value or how that discount comes to pass. Really, what's important is we want to give you the tools to make an informed decision. Solar is a big ticket item. It's like purchasing a vehicle. So we're not doing our job as an organization unless you have those tools to make an informed decision. And basically what I'm going to be talking about with solar is understanding the sticker prices, the components, the financing, so that you as a consumer can make a decision that makes the most sense to you. And it may not be with Solar Switch or maybe outside of it, but again, our job is to give you those tools. It also gives you the opportunity to connect and help others go solar. So if you're one of those people that put solar on your home or business, but ask the question, how can I help others? You can really be an advocate. You can be an ambassador, tell your neighbors, tell your network, and explain, as somebody that's gone through the process, what it is and what it takes to put it on your home or business. And then as I mentioned earlier, the evolution to Solar Switch allows us to scale the frequency and size of the groups. With our co-op model, which is a little bit different, we found that a single installer serving 300, 400, or 500 people was just not allowing us to get the scale of installations that we needed. So now with this program that we administer, there's multiple installers, and some of the back end of the process is managed with a group called iChooser. So it allows us to do, instead of one group a year in Northern Virginia, 2 groups. And then instead of topping out at 300 participants, we're really looking to grow this group over to 600 or 700 residents as part of the Northern Virginia group. And then lastly, it allows us to demonstrate a regional impact. The Metropolitan Washington Council of Government has a goal of 250,000 rooftop solar installations by 2030. So we're really feeling like by collaborating with not only Northern Virginia jurisdictions, but DC and Maryland in the greater DMV area, we can show that regional impact. And speaking of, wanted to give you some current stats on our registration. You'll see that Maryland right now has 858 people, DC 457. So, and Virginia, we're kind of coming up on the back end of that. So we're asking you to help us grow this group. We really depend on a lot of organic word of mouth. So post on Nextdoor, share with your network or on social media. Our goal for this group right now is 300 plus registrations, over 600 plus in Virginia. And you all can help us by sharing those with your friends, neighbors, and network. Or maybe you work with people that live in DC or Maryland and haven't heard about it. Really help us grow that regional impact by sharing the information. All right. And so how does this bulk purchase model help reduce prices to you, the participant? Well, most of the cost of a residential or small commercial installation is what's called soft costs or non-component costs. And that's the price that an installer pays to find customers. It may be in permitting or site visits. So having a bigger group of consumers or customers in a concentric geographic area helps them pass along those discounts to the consumer. So you'll see that system components aren't really a big chunk, but again, those soft costs. So this bulk purchase model breaks down into a lot of efficiencies for the installer that they can then pass along to the participant. And then you as a participant get the help of a nonprofit, Solar United Neighbors, to help guide you through the process. Again, benefits of group buying. What we're seeing is a lower price on installation with a trusted installer. We are seeing anywhere between about a 15 to 25% savings. In the last group that we did, the typical installation size saw a discount of over $4,000. So definitely a discount for going with the group. You'll see a hassle-free process by signing up online, and then those installers are managed through the process. So our team, as well as iChooser, are checking in with the installers, making sure that they're working through the list of people, and if there's any challenges, we're helping address those, kind of working on the same team. The technical research is completed to ensure quality warranty products are installed. So the product offering from the installers is going to ensure that the products, again, are very top tier, high level. And then you're going to get customer service support at all stages. When you go to the registration page on iChooser, you'll see an option not only for phone, but also email support. And again, if there's any questions or challenges, our team here in Virginia in the DMV region, when I say our team, it's mostly Sucrit, is going to be there to help you. So let's talk a little bit about the solar switch process for participants. I think one of the first steps actually is just learning about solar. So congratulations, by being part of this info session, you're learning about the components, the pricing. Make sure it's a good fit. Know what you want before too, so you're positioning yourself as a smarter consumer with that knowledge even before the process. But when you do decide to go forward, you're going to do the registration, then a personal recommendation, the decision is up to you, and then the installation. So let's talk through that. The first step is going into the registration page, sharing your roof details. You may know some or all or a little bit about your roof, but you have an option to put that in terms of how many, what the pitch is, what type of roof material it is, or if it's a multi-story house. And that helps the iChooser team figure out your personal recommendation. And again, you'll see on the right-hand side of this, any questions at any time, you have an option to email or call the team. Again, the registration process is providing your information. Provide the best email to reach you, as well as your zip code determines eligibility. This is for Northern Virginia counties, not all over Virginia. And then once that's done, you're going to get a personal offer recommendation. So the way that the iChooser team forum works or platform is that they do a reverse auction with vetted, trusted installers that have a track record. And then based on competitive pricing and then track record in the area, one or multiple installers are chosen. I believe in this instance, it's going to be 2 different installers that are assigned based on zip code. They're going to give you that personal offer recommendation based on the information that you filled out in terms of your roof size, what your utility bill is, all of that stuff. And then this is the decision point when you decide if you want to accept that personal recommendation, and you're just going to post a refundable $150 deposit. Again, the deposit shows that you're willing to move forward. It is completely refundable if you decide not to, and then that goes towards the price of your installation. And again, we get literally thousands of people in these programs. That deposit shows, that you're serious and willing to move forward. So I'm going to stop here and pause, A, if there are any questions, and B, Sukrit, if there's anything that you want to add to this or anything that I missed.
No, this was fairly extensive. I think you covered all parts of this. And the most
Okay.
important thing to remember is, even when you accept that personal offer and you're connected to the installer, even at that point, if you feel like this is not for you, or you want to, just wait for the next campaign, that deposit is 100% refundable. So there's no obligation to keep going on with this if you're unsure. This just lets us know how interested folks are in going solar with us. And I will be dropping another FAQ and 101 on how the whole model works. So you can see a breakdown of all the sequence of events, all the major steps, and any other questions that you have, it'll be answered over there as well. But yeah, we're good for now.
All right, thank you. All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about solar technology, and I want to couch this in terms of solar is a big ticket item, right? It's like purchasing a vehicle. And Solar United Neighbors, our goal is to give you those tools to help you understand. So think of this as almost like understanding what the sticker price is on a vehicle and helping you get into a system that best suits your needs. If you were to go to the barber, you wouldn't just sit down in the chair and say, cut my hair. You'd want a good idea of what you're looking for. So I hope what you get out of this is a good understanding of the technology, how it works. Then we'll talk about payback. So again, you as a consumer, whether it's through the solar switch or outside of the program, have the tools to make an informed and prudent decision. All right, let's go. So solar PV. There are two different types of solar technologies. One is solar photovoltaic, which we'll be talking about today. That's PV. It's two words, photo meaning light and voltaic, voltage. So it's using sunlight to convert the energy of the sun into electricity. There's also solar thermal, which uses the sun's heat to heat water for bathing or for other uses. It's a great technology, but we're only focusing on the electricity producing technology. So a solar system is a variety of different components. The most obvious is going to be the panels. The panels themselves are about 4 by 6, weigh about 45 pounds, and you can see they're made of a number of different components. What's important to know is that they're measured in wattage. So like the incandescent light bulbs, the old incandescent bulbs, if you bought a 50-watt light bulb, it would consume 50 watts. Panels are measured in the wattage that they produce. So a 400-watt panel would produce 400 watts of power at any given instant. But very rarely would you have just a single panel on your home or business. You're going to have a solar array or multiple panels. And those solar arrays or your system size is measured in 1,000-watt increments. So if you had 4 250-watt panels, you'd have a 1,000-watt system or a 1 kilowatt system. Your system is going to be measured in kilowatts. So good to know that, because that's what you're going to see on your proposal. The next part of the system is going to be racking. So how do those panels affix to your home or business? Well, depending on the type of roof you have, you're going to have a racking system that's going to couple those panels appropriately to it. Right there is an asphalt shingle roof, which is probably the most common one that you see in Virginia. You may have a standing seam metal roof like you see on the Wawa gas stations, or a flat TPO membrane roof. If you live in a row house or historic area, you sometimes see those. You're going to have a racking system that's going to put those panels appropriately on it. The one roof that is not easily coupled to panels is a slate roof. So if you have a slate roof, many installation companies will not install on slate, or those that do will install at a significantly higher upcharge. So just something to note. But all the other roof sizes or roof types do have a panel system or racking system for that. That's just an example right there of a standing seam metal roof. What's a good roof for solar? So part of the process, right, is asking you a little bit about your roof when you sign up for Solar Switch. What are we looking for, or what's a good roof for solar? Most importantly is your roof orientation. Ideally, you're going to want your roof to be oriented to the south because you're facing into the equator. An east or west facing roof is able to go solar. It's just going to produce a little bit less, but south is ideal. What you want to avoid is your best surface for solar facing north. That's facing away from the equator. A flat roof is great because the panels can be optimally tilted based on that flat roof. So again, what you want to avoid is north. My roof here in Richmond, I have panels on mine, is mostly east, kind of southeast. So I don't quite produce as much, but still pretty decent amount. An installer is going to tell you exactly what a system on your roof is going to produce. Second factor is little or no shading. So the sun is at different angles during certain times of the day or during certain times of the season, right? June 21st is our summer solstice. It's going to be the longest day of sunlight in the year. But you also have variations based on east-west when the sun rises and sets. So we're looking as a basic rule of thumb from about a 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. time window where your roof is going to have access to the sun, not being shaded by trees or gables or dormers. Next, is there enough space to mount panels? So you want, as a rule of thumb, about 200 square feet or more of unobstructed flat roof space that doesn't face north. So if your roof is too small, it's just not worth it to do it. So you want to make sure you have enough space to mount those panels. You want a newer or undamaged roof because the panels themselves are actually going to last 25 years plus. What you want to avoid is having to reinstall or unrack your system to replace a roof. So you want to go solar either right after you replace your roof or ensure that you have at least 10 to 15 years left on that roof so you don't have to pay somebody to take them down, store them, and then install them again. The good news is that panels will protect your roof against the biggest factor that degrades it, and that's sunlight. So that's what we're looking for, a good roof for solar. If you don't have a good roof for solar, and this applies in a lot of rural areas, you may have ground-mounted solar panels. Our Virginia program director on his church in Norfolk has a ground-mounted system. And in the case where you may not have a good roof and you have plenty of space, those ground-mounted panels would be a good option. The disadvantage is that they're a little more costly because the racking system has to be designed for it. But the advantages could be is that they can be optimally tilted, and having a little bit of airflow behind the panels actually cools them and makes them more efficient. Panels are a little bit more efficient in colder temperatures. So that's a little bit about siting. I'm going to go into probably one of your more important components of your system, and that's your inverter. Your inverter is a power conditioning device. It conditions the power and makes it usable. Your panels produce direct current electricity, but your home or business produces or utilizes alternating current, or AC. So what the inverter does is just switch it from DC to AC, and then it can be used on the premises. And there's a couple different types of technologies. String inverters are kind of the more classic design, used mostly for ground mounts and commercial. You'll have a string inverter with DC optimizer or micro inverters. What we're typically seeing now in the residential sector are mostly micro inverters. And your string inverter and DC optimizer are also commonly used. With a micro inverter or a string inverter with DC optimizer, you have panel level monitoring, which is good for troubleshooting. And when you go solar, I can tell you this from experience, your new toy will be your online monitoring system. You will look at it every day, sometimes every hour, because it tells you exactly what your system is producing, gives you neat little graphs and stuff like that. But it can also be a really good troubleshooting thing because it shows you what each panel is producing. If there's a panel out, you can see that. So those string inverters with DC optimizers or micro inverters allow that, and also allow it to maximize performance in the instances that there is shade. Some of the older string inverters, if there was a panel or a couple panels that were shaded, it might bring down the performance of other ones, kind of like the old Christmas lights. Those microinverters or optimizers isolate a poorly performing panel. But again, your installer is going to propose an inverter or is going to quote an inverter. And again, what you'll probably see in the residential sector are mostly microinverters. So how does my solar connect to my electric panel? It's a simple connection in the panel. Most home electric systems don't need upgrades, but if you do need an upgrade, you can work with an electrician that you hire, or oftentimes the installer will have an electrician that can upgrade your panel, but that is pretty rare. All right, so kind of putting a lot of this together in important terminology, and we cover this again to get you prepared so that when you see your quote, like a sticker price on a vehicle, you know exactly what you're looking at. So your system size is measured in kilowatts, as I mentioned before, and then the electricity production is measured in kilowatt hours. So even though they sound similar, it is apples and oranges. Your system size in kilowatts going to affect your electricity production. So a larger system, all things held equal, is going to produce more kilowatt hours. And again, the good news is that the installer is going to tell you exactly what a system on your particular roof is in size, as well as what the electricity production of that system is going to look like. People ask us all the time, well, what size system do I need and how much is it going to cost? And it's really a question that's impossible for me to answer, at least honestly, because the first thing that we need to know is what your annual consumption of electricity is. You could have two 2,000 square foot homes, but have completely different energy usage patterns based on, are the major appliances gas or electric, how many people live in it. So the best way to get a sense of your electricity consumption in your home or business is to look at a bill. That utility bill has your year's history of what you consume. So that gives your installer an idea of what you're consuming. Then they're going to look at your roof or your site and figure out, well, how much can I fit on that roof? And then part of it is your job as a consumer is to, say what your goals are. It's okay to go with a percentage of annual production. I'll explain that here in a second. Maybe you're going to be electrifying your vehicles or switching out gas appliances to electric. So, get a sense of what your budget is, what your goals are, even before you talk to your installer. And just here is a good example that I would say is definitely not up to scale. That'd be a pretty small person there. But if you had 12 300-watt panels, 12 times 300 would be 3,600 watts, or a 3.6 kilowatt system. So again, your kilowatts, your system size, electricity production is kilowatt hours, same unit that the utility bills you for. All right. So I mentioned that you don't have to go all or nothing with a solar system on your home. You can produce, 50% of your annual consumption with solar panels. What makes this possible is that 99.9% of the systems deployed in Virginia and nationwide are grid-tied systems. They tie into the grid and they use a billing system called net metering. So if we follow the schematic here, your solar panels absorb energy from the sun and they produce direct current electricity. Your inverter is going to convert that direct current from DC to AC so that it can be used. And then that electricity is used instantaneously. I'm not at home right now, but my panels are probably powering my refrigerator on my home. If I had my computer going there, that electricity would be flowing in and being instantaneously used by whatever is using electricity, what they call loads. Well, let's just say you're on vacation for 2 weeks during the summer. You've got nothing plugged in, but your panels are still cranking away. You don't have batteries on site for storage. It's a purely grid-tied system. What happens? Well, you're actually sending that excess electricity, spinning your meter backwards, as it were, and you're going to get a full credit for the electricity that you produce with solar, but you don't use at that instant. And this is what's called net metering, and you're going to get a full retail value credit. So let's talk about net metering. You're going to get a full 1-to-1 credit per kilowatt hour or unit of electricity. Here in Virginia, the price per kilowatt hour is roughly about anywhere between 12 to 14 cents right now. You're going to have daily or seasonal surpluses. Again, if you're, work offsite or outside of your home, you're probably going to be producing surpluses during the times that you're not there consuming electricity, as well as seasonally. Typically, your spring and fall months are when you're going to be producing surpluses because your heating and cooling loads are not that much, but you have kind of longer days and cooler temperatures, which are really good for production. Your net metering is going to be an annual billing cycle. So that's based on when you interconnect your system, not your calendar year. So if your system goes live in June, your billing cycle is going to be from June of that year until May of next year. And you can do a percentage of annual offset. People will go 100%, all of their annual energy use from solar. Some will actually oversize their system a little bit. In Dominion territory, you can oversize to about 125% if you want to grow into your energy use with an electric vehicle or switching out gas appliances. Whereas some people with budget maybe only have enough space or budget to produce 50 or less than that, 40% of their electricity from solar every year. On my home, I've got an electric vehicle. I produce about 80% of my electricity use, but no size is too small. And even though they tell you that you should go energy efficiency first, what a lot of people do will go solar and then become very mindful of what their energy use is, and then go with more efficient appliances or usage patterns to maximize that. And there's no right or wrong way. All right. So net metering, what does it look like on your bill? It's based on the electricity you consume, and then with the electricity you produce by solar. So in this example, let's just say you consume 300 kilowatt hours of electricity, but produce 250 kilowatt hours with solar. You're going to pay for that 50 kilowatt hours of electricity that you use. Or let's just say conversely, you produce 350 kilowatt hours of electricity, but only consume 300 kilowatt hours of electricity that month. That 50 kilowatt hour credit is going to roll over into your next month. Kind of like rollover minutes when the old cell phone companies did that. That's similar to what net metering does. You're still going to pay your fixed connection charge, which is your Dominion charge plus local taxes. And it's going to vary if you're a member of Dominion or maybe like Northern Virginia Electric Cooperative. But the basis of it still remains. Your surpluses are carried over month to month. It's an annual billing cycle based on your interconnection date. Power outages and batteries. So I mentioned before, a majority of the systems that are deployed in Virginia nationwide are grid-tied system, and a majority right now are not including battery storage. So the advantage of a grid-tied system is it's less components. The disadvantage of is if you have solar panels on your house and no battery storage or backup generator, your panels are not going to function when the grid goes out. And that's a safety mechanism. If you're backfeeding the grid and the utility has linemen out there working on it, you want to avoid that scenario. Also, the grid conditions the power quality too. So if you want to have power during outages, you need either battery storage or solar can be coupled with a backup generator. They play together, they just play separately. And then here are some of the use case scenarios too. You might want storage if you have frequent utility outages, critical loads at home like medical equipment, well pumps. And what we see in the region that I oversee includes Florida and Puerto Rico. It is the best way for emergency disaster preparedness. So on-site battery storage coupled to solar is a great way to keep the lights on. The disadvantages, again, are cost and complexity. So the battery does add additional cost, and then the installation is a little more complex. So if you want to really go into the value proposition, we have a battery storage guide, which I assume Sukrit is going to be dropping into the chat. I'm going to go into this last slide and then stop for questions. I've been talking a lot, so I'm sure there'll be some questions. Warranties. So the panels themselves are warranted for a 25-year production warranty with at least 80% of production, as well as a 10-year manufacturer defect warranty. So a defect warranty would be if a panel has a piece of steel from the manufacturing process hanging off of it, but doesn't affect production, that would be covered under warranty. The linear production warranty is typically 80% is the floor industry standard. Many panels are now 85 or 90%, which means that after 25 years, if it does not produce, let's just say, for example, 80% under maximum or standard test conditions, it would be out of compliance with the warranty. So if you had a 100-watt panel and within 25 years, it did not produce at least 80 watts under standard test conditions, it would be out of compliance. I can tell you we've literally installed millions of panels, I would assume. I haven't counted them individually in Virginia, and I've only heard of one individual homeowner that has had an issue with a panel that's fallen out of warranty, so pretty rare. Your other major components, your inverters are going to have a 10 to 25 year warranty, microinverters 25 years, typically the string inverters, the inverter themselves, anywhere between 10 to 12-year warranty, and then the optimizers on the solar edge system are a 25-year warranty. So pretty good warranties on the components, which are also transferable. If your installer goes out of business, they can be serviced by another installer. And then workmanship, labor warranty, or things like roof penetrations, things that the installer actually touches. What we see and observe anywhere between a 5 to 10 year workmanship or labor warranty from the installer. That is only as good as the installer is in business. Homeowners insurance. So you definitely want to tell your homeowners insurance company that you did install panels. You should not see any precipitous rise in your rates. If you do, think about another company. So most of the insurance companies out there are well aware you're not going to see an increase in premiums. Maintenance. What we like to say is that your system, solar systems, a generator with no moving parts, a free source of fuel, and a 25-year plus expected lifespan. Pretty low maintenance. What you're going to want to do is check in with your online monitoring system, make sure that that your panels are working. One of the biggest points of maintenance are actually squirrel damage. So, you might want to have your installer up there, maybe every 3 to 5 years, just take a close look or an inspection, but we do not see a lot of maintenance issues. And when if you got a lot of snow up there, we do not recommend going up on your roof and shoveling the snow. It's going to melt off. And we get enough rain here in Virginia, especially this spring, that your panels are going to be washed off. I mentioned that systems last over 25-year plus with that warranted lifespan. And I also mentioned earlier that about HOAs. So in 2020, passed a law that made it harder for HOAs to be restricted, solar to be restricted by HOAs. And the criteria is that it clarifies what's called a reasonable restriction. An unreasonable restriction is if your HOA dictates a redesign, like putting it on the back of the house or away from line of sight, that increases the system cost by 5% or more, or decreases the production by 10% more or more over the originally quoted system. The one thing is that if your HOA does have a pre-existing covenant or ban on solar, that does take precedence. So just double check with your HOA, but the law is on your side. What if I'm in a historic district? It is typically limited by line of sight, so just always tell your installer about that. We, again, typically see that it's based on site considerations, and that's going to vary based on what historic district you're in. And then again, how big of a system do I need? True or false? Can I answer that? False. I don't know, because I don't know what you consume, what your goals are, right? So think of it again as something that is highly customizable. You can often think of your proposal, which can be an adjustable starting point. So you may, have your budget needs, be a certain way, or if you want to get a bigger system. So it is really highly customizable based on what your needs are. All right. I'm going to take a pause here, A, because I've been talking a lot, and B, I'm wondering if there are any questions before I get into the economics of systems.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. That was fairly extensive. We do
Yeah.
have a couple of questions in the chat.
Sure.
And the first one is from Lee, and it's about the roof. It's just over 20 years old. It sort of puts them in the gray area. Is
Yeah.
there any rule of thumb that you could discuss in terms of potentially getting the roof replaced, or are they still okay to keep it on and maybe go solar?
I think 20 years is on, if, it depends on the type of roof, right? And again, just the rule of thumb, if your roof has, let's just say conservatively 10 or 15, less than 10 or 15 years of life left on it, it is a good idea to go solar after you replace your roof. And oftentimes a solar installer can get up there and take a look at it. Maybe, they're not roofing experts, but would know enough to tell you if it's a good idea. But I would just say, depending on how much life you got left on that roof, it's probably a good idea to maybe wait till after.
Perfect. Perfect. And the second question is from Kristen. What if they're having issues with their installer or their quality of work? Do you have any suggestions over there?
Yeah, I mean, in general, this is if you're part of our program, if you're part of iChooser, that's something that, you not only have a phone line, but you also have email. So reach out for customer support. We also have a backline of us here. When I say us, it's you, Sukrit, that support services through our help desk. So part of this program and part of our work at Solar United Neighbors is to give support, be a bridge of communications, and that can help you support or help give you that support.
Perfect. And I just wanted to add a couple of things. The first thing is, yeah, we mediate our inbox when it comes to customer service and any installation related questions. I will drop our email again in the chat. And secondly, Aaron did cover the FAQ slide earlier. I will drop another link, or I did drop a link around that. Please check it out. It's really extensive. It's got a lot of good information, so it's going to be worth your time. And that's about it for now.
Thanks, Sukrit. All right, this is the last section here, and we'll talk about solar economics. Got a few slides, and then we'll let you go. So just a few take-home messages. Solar costs have dropped by 73% since 2010. It is a long-term investment, as I mentioned, no moving parts and a 25-year lifespan. What you're doing is hedging against rising utility rates. And in Virginia, we like to post pretty conservative numbers. What we've observed since we've worked here since 2014 is a return on investment, or the time it takes to recoup that investment, anywhere between 9 to 13 years. I would say that's pretty conservative. But that is what we're observing. I would also mention too, what you're seeing in solar are incremental improvements in efficiency and price drops, but it doesn't follow a Moore's law per se, where if you go solar, this year, your solar system is not going to be like my laptop, which is obsolete the year after. You're seeing minor improvements, but what I'm saying is that going solar right now is not going to, you're not going to see some major technological breakthrough or some massive costs. What you're seeing is a straight, kind of a incremental price decline and improvement in the technology. So I'm going to walk you through the pricing right here. And this is a lot of numbers right here, but what I would really want you all as participants to take from it is understanding how your solar system is priced, because this is getting you ready to look at the proposal. Look at how the system is priced, and then look at the assumptions on payback, mostly including your revenue streams. So I'm going to talk about the pricing, the revenue streams, and things that you should be looking out for. So solar is priced by the wattage, not by the panel. That's really, really important. So you could have a 1 kilowatt system that's 4 250 watt panels, or roughly 333 watt panels. You're going to be paying for that system based on the wattage, not by the panel. So be mindful of that if you're comparing two proposals. And then again, you have a price per watt. So looking at the examples here, we're taking the average Virginia Solar Co-op bulk purchase pricing of $2.75 a watt. And if we have a 4 kilowatt system, multiplying that by 4,000 watts, or 4 kilowatts, would get you $11,000. Would be your upfront cost. And then in the 8 kilowatt system, you would just double that, 8,000 times $2.75 a watt. Your system might be 5.7 kilowatts, depending on what you need, but this is to give you some illustrations of example. Now, these are turnkey systems, by the way, so the installer is going to procure the equipment, install them, do all of the permitting, so that's important to note. Now, the next section is how does your system pay back, right? So let's look at the revenue streams. We have a 30% federal tax credit, and that is a tax credit, not a rebate, and it is for people that pay federal taxes. So you do have to pay into it. If you're retired or don't have a taxable income, it's not going to be applied to you. But with the Inflation Reduction Act, which Jenna and Courtney mentioned earlier, that 30% tax credit is going to be available for the next 9 years. And it is an investment tax credit based on the price of the system. So if the $11,000 system in the 4 kilowatt column, your federal tax credit would be $3,300, and you would put that and file that the tax year that your system is put into service. So if you back when the tax credit was stepping down, if you knew an installer, you probably would never see them in November and December because everybody was trying to get their systems installed in that tax year. So that gives you your net cost after your first tax or after your first year. The other main source of income is going to be your electricity savings. I should say before that, there is no state tax credit for solar in Virginia. In states where there are state tax credits, that's also applicable. Unfortunately, in Virginia, that's not the case. So we skip down to electricity savings. Your electricity savings are the kilowatt hours that your system produces annually, multiplied by the price that you pay per kilowatt hours of electricity. So what you produce from solar means you don't have to purchase from the utility or the grid. And we're about 12 to 14 cents a kilowatt hour here in Virginia. As prices go up, if the price of electricity, say, doubles in the kilowatt hour price in the next 6 or 7 years, the value of your electricity from solar is gonna double as well, because that's what you're producing. You don't have to buy it for the grid. So again, you take your electricity savings annually, and that's pretty easy to figure out, multiplied, or again, your kilowatt hour production from solar multiplied by what you pay for from your utility. And again, it gives you some estimated 10-year savings and 25-year savings. Again, that's pretty highly customizable based on the production of your system and what you pay for in terms of your kilowatt hour price. The last thing is a solar renewable energy credit, or your last revenue stream, I should say. And that's what's called a production incentive, and it's based on your energy production. So your federal tax credit is an investment tax credit based on what you invest. This is a incentive based on what you produce. And it's dictated by what's called a renewable portfolio standard, which is basically a mandate in the state that tells the utilities that they have to produce a certain percentage of their electricity from solar. So in 2020, when the Virginia Clean Economy Act passed, it actually put that RPS, or that renewable portfolio standard, into play, meaning that if the utilities did not produce a certain percentage, which is pretty modest, depending on where state, usually a small percentage per year, they would have to pay a penalty. But instead of that, what they could do is pay a solar renewable energy credit, or have a market for solar renewable energy credit from a producer. And I like to think of it in simple terms, because you can really go down the rabbit hole in terms of technology or technical terms. It's basically as if your solar system was a well of water. And for every 1,000 gallons of water, you're going to get a little certificate or an SREC that has value. So in Virginia, a 4 kilowatt system might produce 5 SRECs a year. And currently the price is anywhere between $30 or $40. You can go through a number of different brokerage terms. But what it does is give you a little additional revenue stream based on what your production is. So when I registered my SRECs, I just got a $48 payment for the last quarter. Sometimes they'll do an annuity depending on what type of SREC brokerage firm you go to. But what it translates to, again, is just another revenue stream that helps you pay back your system. So I'm hoping that you get out of this understanding of how your system is priced, understanding of your revenue streams, which are your federal tax credit, your electricity savings, and your SREC, and then that gives you the tools to make an informed decision. The last thing that I'll tell you is the reason why Solar United Neighbors fights really, really hard for policy is I mentioned that a 4 kilowatt system in Virginia might net you about $200 of SRECs per year at a $40. Well, if you were to magically move your home across the river into Washington, D.C., the price of SRECs is nearly $400. So just by having really aggressive policy goals, it increases a revenue stream, makes it easier for homeowners to recoup their investment. So you go from making $200 to $1,600 a year, or actually $2,000 a year if you can check your math. So again, another reason why policy that affects solar homeowners is so important and why we fight for it. So I'm going to pause here. Sure, I'm probably going to leave some room for questions. Didn't explain it all super great, but Sukrit, what do we got?
We had some good questions in the chat. I did drop some resources around ITCs and tax credits, so I think we have it covered. And Courtney, thank you for dropping that link as well. Folks are welcome to access it and learn more about ITCs and how tax credits are applied. And yeah, I think that covers everything. After this presentation is over, you will be receiving a recording of this presentation, as well as anything that was covered in the chat. So you're not missing anything. So yeah, that's it from me.
Great, thanks, Sukrit. Yeah, I appreciate you and Brandon joining us. Also appreciate Courtney and Jenna. What I will say is we really need your help. Let's help blow this one out of the water. Last Solar Switch program we did as a pilot, our first one, we closed nearly 200 signed contracts in the region, did about 2 megawatts worth of installed capacity. I think for this group, we'd love to see 3 megawatts worth of installed capacity, more than, maybe try to double that, or at least try to get over 200 or 300 installations. And the way that you can help is if you're on Nextdoor or if on social media, tell your friends and neighbors. If you're a member of a group or a community association, that's really going to help us. And again, it's a voluntary buying group, no obligation, and we're really here to help you, whether it's through the Solar Switch program or maybe on your own. Maybe you've got a couple proposals that you've been looking at. We're happy to help either way. So thank you all for joining us, and hope you have a good rest of your day. Thanks.